talk to over. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming. My name is James Faluzak. F as in Frank, A-L-U-S-Z-C-Z-A-K. I'm a former priest. I'm a survivor of clergy sex abuse. I testified before the 40th grand jury in Pennsylvania. To my right is Paul Barr, a victim of Father Michael Freeman. Paul is going to be speaking today to all of you for the first time on this matter. And we know that Father Freeman is in the news right now, and so you'll have some questions for Paul, no doubt. To my left is Siobhan O'Connor, the former secretary to Bishop Malone. And to her left is Judith Burns-Quinn, the local coordinator of the Survivors Network of those abused by priests. Bishop Donald Troutman, to my mind, is a wolf in shepherd's clothing. Bishop Troutman has consistently displayed a callous disregard for victims, questioning the authenticity of their experience, in some cases blaming them for what happened. I've said before that he told me that I was lucky that Father Daniel Martin only molested me 15 times. It is high time that the bishops of Buffalo, Bishop Richard Malone, and Bishop Persico of Erie suspend the public ministry of Donald Troutman. Bishop Persico has been aware of multiple sets of allegations of cover-up by Bishop Troutman for at least a year, both from my own allegations, from the substance of the grand jury report, significant public reporting going back all the way to 2004, and multiple public statements by victims and survivors over the years. Bishop Persico said this week that he is only hearing about these allegations of Bishop Troutman's cover-up of Father Freeman and others, that Persico is just hearing these for the first time. Has he not paid attention to the news in this last year? Did he not read the grand jury report that pertains to the Diocese of Erie? Bishop Troutman was recently featured at a Mass at Our Lady of Victory Basilica in Lackawanna, the 50th anniversary of the priest class of 1969. It appeared to be a rogues gallery on the altar at the Basilica. You had Bishop Cunningham, Bishop Grosch, Bishop Malone, and Bishop Troutman, who have all presided in one way or another over the cover-up of these matters in Buffalo. After all the talk that we've heard from Pope Francis, from the bishops of the United States, and multiple scandals throughout the world that rival exactly what is going on in Buffalo, these men are still publicly ministering. It is important for the healing of victims and for the application of justice that Bishop Troutman be suspended from public ministry while they conduct an investigation of what they really knew. Why didn't Bishop Persico begin an investigation of Bishop Troutman a year ago? Why didn't he begin an investigation of Bishop Troutman in 2012 when he became aware of a taped confession by the recently sentenced predator priest, Father David Paulson? They had a taped confession in their secret archives. Bishop Persico still has yet to answer adequately when he came into possession of that tape, when he became aware of the substance of materials found in the secret archives in the Diocese of Erie. From 2012 to 2016, when the grand jury in Pennsylvania was impaneled, did he have no awareness whatsoever what was in his own files? The secret archives in a diocese are the Area 51 of the Catholic Church. And it seems to me that any bishop, upon assuming that high office, that one of the first things that they would do would be to look at those files, just out of not simply curiosity, but if they have an ounce of concern for the historical nature of this tragedy, why wouldn't they get on top of those matters right away? It is a crime, it is a scandal that these men are in ministry, and to my mind, as I say, they are wolves in shepherd's clothing. It is not enough that they still be allowed to function. It certainly is not enough yet that these men are not in jail. Paul, what would you like to say to us this afternoon?
I just want to say that I made my report. To the diocese that Michael Freeman sexually assaulted me when I was 16 years old. And 2 years later, I came to this diocese and I made that report while Bishop Troutman was second in control of the entire diocese. Bishop Head was the bishop then. And I was ignored. And Michael Freeman went on to severely abuse multiple young men and boys. And I reported again in writing to the diocese. There's a record across the street of that report. And again, I was ignored. The diocese never reached out once to me to consider my well-being. I remain Catholic today. I attend Mass today, and I've still never once had anyone from the diocese reach out to me to find out what I might know or what I knew then that could protect survivors or that could have protected survivors back then. All this talk of Bishop Troutman, I know very little of him, but what I do know is he's either lying or is incompetent. And he was either lying then or was incompetent then. In either case, he should not be in ministry. That's all I have to say.
Siobhan?
Well, as you know, I'm much more familiar with Bishop Malone than Bishop Troutman, but I can tell you that I am familiar with his name as Monsignor Troutman when he was the Chancellor and then Vicar General of our diocese under Bishop Head. I'm familiar with his initials, DWT, which appear on many memos and other documentation that's in the secret archives. And I must say that I was not surprised by the contents of the grand jury report last August, which implicated him, because I believe that the same pattern that he adopted in Erie is one which he learned and participated here in the Diocese of Buffalo, which was to always protect the church and not to protect or have concern or adequate concern for the victims. So I believe that that's something that he perpetuated in the diocese and came to govern in Erie. And I just want to call out to our fellow Catholics in the Diocese of Erie, please hold your leadership accountable. It can be very difficult, but in many things we have to do this for them too, because it may be hard for them to face accountability from their people, but it's going to be much worse when they face it from God. And time is not on their side, but the truth can be. And I just really hope that they can stop this denying and this deceit. If they can't do it for the sake of brave survivors like these two gentlemen and so many others, if they can't do it for the sake of their people, then do it for the sake of their own souls. Because at the end of their lives, they're not going to be able to get away with this. You can't deceive God. He knows what's in those files. He knows what they were aware of, what they did and did not do. And I just ask them, as one of their sheep, please do this for yourself if you can't for us. Be honest with us. The time is now, and we are not going to accept anything but the truth.
I lived most of my adult lifehood with people that have moved up the corporate ladder. I cannot understand how these bishops have moved up in the diocese as a corporation, the church as a corporation, how they moved up the ladder with not knowing the people that they were responsible for below them, that they were predators. To get in a position like that, they had to have psychology courses. You probably had your first psychology course and you know something about heaven, and yet they did absolutely nothing. and they harm the victims. Being a member of Survivors Network and those abused by priests, and I've been doing this for 20 years, I know the harm that happened. And a lot of times people move on with their life until they have a recovered memory. And it's an awful position for them to do. And these people are responsible for it. They should have known who the predators were and dismissed them. And actually got them even more treatment to dismiss them as putting them out in public. It's kind of damaging in those ways without
Thank you. Page 87 of the Pennsylvania Grand Jury Report describes Bishop Troutman's method of timing out civil and criminal complaints of this nature. Bishop Troutman chose to drag his feet, chose to stonewall victims so that the statute of limitations would expire. We see the evidence of this behavior in Erie. We see the evidence of this behavior in Buffalo. And as the federal government, the U.S. attorneys are now investigating these matters, we can talk about the fact that that investigation, we know, deals with the trafficking of children and the movement of priests from one diocese to another. But in Bishop Troutman's case, he took his playbook across state lines. Bishop Troutman began this behavior in the Diocese of Buffalo, and he took it with him to Erie. Bishop Troutman has spread tragedy like a contagion. Your questions, please.
What do you say to Bishop Malone, who, anytime this comes out, I think even earlier this week, they said, oh, well, this didn't happen while Bishop Malone was the bishop?
It didn't happen while he was the bishop, but he's the bishop now, and he's allowing Bishop Troutman to say Mass in his diocese. He's allowing this rogue bishop to function among the good Catholic people of Western New York. Whatever happened before Bishop Malone got here has nothing to do with the nature of this ongoing struggle. Some of these perpetrators are dead. These bishops are getting old and elderly. The facts are going to start dying off, yet the victims remain. We, the living, have to continue to put up with the prevarication and confusion that the bishops create with these matters.
If I could say something to that too. I know that Bishop Malone often will say that everything is predating his time here, but he is making decisions in the here and now with that Mass MLB last month, where he had Bishop Troutman to his direct right and welcomed him to our diocese. This is a time to have a man of conviction and to take a stand. Earlier this month at the priest convocation of the seminary, the scheduled speaker, who was a long time planned to attend, he canceled because he's been following the reports here in Buffalo and he doesn't support Bishop Malone and the decisions he's making. And I was so proud of that individual for taking a stand and having that conviction. That's what Bishop Malone could have. He could stand up for us in this diocese and say, no, I'm not going to allow Bishop Troutman to be here for this Mass and to be lauded as a former official here. I wish he had done that, and again, he let that opportunity pass him by.
Another victim earlier this week, obviously, who had turned down the settlement, mentioned that, right, you were a victim, and he also mentioned how he felt as though they kept Freeman in, and that he moved, and that he was able to hurt other victims.
That's right. That's right. I know James. James and I have become friends and comrades as a result of what happened to us. And that, for me, is what is most disheartening, is that this could have been prevented. What happened to James could have been prevented if the diocese had responded to what I reported to them myself. Numerous times I reported to this diocese myself. And their turning their back on me resulted in what happened to James. And it's infuriating. Anything else?
He got an offer for a settlement from the diocese with their fund. You haven't received any.
Actually, I have received an offer like James. I received an offer through the IRCP program that the diocese initiated. I also rejected my offer. I offered it for $45,000. rejected that offer, and I have since filed a lawsuit myself. And I also am an attorney representing many clients who have been abused by priests, some of whom were also abused by Michael Freeman. So, because the Child Victims Act, which was just recently enacted by our state legislators, the statute of limitations now has been lifted, and beginning in August, we can confront our abusers. We can hold the diocese accountable, whether they like it or not, whether they can cooperate or not. They'll be forced to turn over records, and that's what we intend to do, is hold them accountable, make the story public so that other people like James can find some peace and begin to heal, because there'll be no healing until all of this becomes public and the diocese is held accountable.
Any other questions?
Can a bishop tell a bishop emeritus you're suspended?
Absolutely. Bishop Persico has what's called ordinary ecclesiastical authority within the domain of his own diocese. So Bishop Persico absolutely has the ability to withdraw Bishop Troutman's faculties. As mine were withdrawn when I chose to leave the priesthood, the bishop could remove Bishop Troutman's for, in a certain sense, a penalty. And this is one of the questions that's come out of the recent U.S. Bishops meeting in Baltimore and the Papal Summit in Rome in February. There have to be sanctions. There have to be sanctions that don't require an investigation going all the way to the Vatican, and an internal investigation. There has to be some sort of independent and objective means of oversight that isn't appointed by the diocese or isn't on the payroll of the diocese. But even without that, more often than not, and Bishop Persico said this week, he doesn't just arbitrarily remove people from ministry. Well, he's done it multiple times. He removed Monsignor Charles Cazza, one of his former vicars general, just about a month and a half ago, pending the outcome of an investigation. So I think that Bishop Persico needs to develop a little bit more of a backbone and take a stronger approach, a more ethical and courageous approach to his Bishop Emeritus. Bishop Malone, too, has the ability, has the authority to prevent any priest or bishop from ministering within his own diocese. That's the rule. I usually take this opportunity at the end of our press conferences to say to any victim who may happen to see this, you are not alone. I stand here with representatives of an army of people willing to help you and support you. Most of us do not want to speak publicly. Maybe 1% would ever do that. But those of you who are suffering in silence need to recognize you are not alone, and there are people here to help you. Anything else? Thank you all for coming, and thanks for your persistence.
Can we get your name and spelling of it?
Yes, of course. My name is Paul Barr, B-A-R-R.
Okay. That was easy enough. Did you grow up here in Buffalo?
No, I grew up in Niagara Falls.
Niagara Falls. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.